speak on the subject of another thing that we don't like to talk about is finances.
Okay.
So let's talk on the area if you don't have a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
How do you go about having this care or guidance? Or even like for my mom, I probably would like to have somebody that would just she can pick out a couple of days, like when she does her doctor's appointments, maybe pick her to her doctor's appointments, or something like she likes to do crafts. So sometimes she needs to go to Michael's because she doesn't drive. So it's like, is there like a day you can have like a chore day and she can just make a list of her little, and she can go out with the person and do the little chores and feel good about shopping and doing her little thing and then come back home, do her little whatever she does because she's fine there. But it's just, for her, it's the getting out. But I don't know where to start as far as like financial. Is there like a financial thing? Is there a place? Is there the church that does this stuff, or is there like a, with a neighbor? How do you? Where do you go?
It's a really good question, and it's also a common one. And there are quite a few programs that are out there that can help. So, for example, Medi-Cal is one, especially here in California. And obviously, they have to qualify with regard to their income. And sometimes their income is too low where they can't really afford all of the things they want, but sometimes it's too high to actually be considered low income. So, but for those families that are really struggling from a financial standpoint, Medi-Cal is definitely one option. And then there's also in-home supportive services. It's called IHSS. And what that does is it allows a child or a loved one or anybody who the family deems appropriate can actually get paid to take care of their loved one. Now, it's not a high income. Typically, it's somewhere between the $1,500 to $2,000 a month range to provide that care, but it's out there. It's called in-home supportive services. There's also veterans benefits. So, for example, we have a relationship with a company called Vet Assist. And so for a veteran who served in the war and even their surviving spouse, they can actually have benefits provided for them where they have someone come in to their home and provide a certain number of hours of services per month. So typically it's between 15 to 20 hours, and it's at no cost to that veteran or his or her surviving spouse. So that's another benefit. So for all of your veteran friends, definitely, if you have any of those, definitely reach out. We can connect you. There's also long-term care insurance. Now, obviously, with long-term care insurance, I don't know if you know this, but there are some types of insurance out there where you can actually have long-term care insurance as a rider. And what that means is you can have a permanent life insurance policy and then attach long-term care to go along with that. And some companies, if you find the right agent or if you find the right product, the right company, there's no extra cost on top of that. And so long-term care as a standalone is quite expensive. And the other thing is if you don't use it, you lose it. So if they qualify, let's say, for example, I'll give you a for instance. So let's say you have a healthy parent right now, and they're in their early 60s, but they're healthy and all of those things. Now, you can actually get life insurance for them and have long-term care attached to it. And then when that time comes, then, they can take advantage of that, and it's, reduces your out-of-pocket expenses. And then a couple of other things you touched on is churches. Sometimes they have community centers, and they also offer what's called respite care. So what respite care is, as a caregiver, and we'll talk about this probably a little later, as a caregiver, sometimes you get burned out and you get tired and you have some difficult challenges. And so what respite care does is they will have people come in for a few hours or a night or a day to offer help for those families that qualify for that. So those are just a few, but it really, one thing about quality care is sometimes it can be quite costly. So being able to have those other additional resources is super, super important.
Yeah. I know with our family, we took advantage of the one where you could have a family member, get paid to do things for you, because my aunt had muscular dystrophy. And so my mom would bathe her and everything, and, do all those kind of chores and stuff. And then they just let her get paid for it to do it.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what I was talking about with IHSS, in-home supportive services.
So that was a good one. That was a good resource.
I remember that. I remember. Interesting. Well, my brain is just like, wow.
Like, I'm swimming.
Okay, let's just keep talking. Just keep talking.
Okay. Hey, no problem. Hey, I can go on and talk about this for hours. I just want to make sure I don't jump in where you wouldn't have something to ask.
No, you're perfect. Well, if I have a question, we'll just.
Okay.
So much though. I feel like I'm in a class. They really do.
There's a lot to learn.
You
really
need classes for this.
That's for sure.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Dang, this is deep.
Oh, well, thank you. So, I'll just keep talking and you could jump in whenever.
Yes, please.
Because sometimes people ask me, what advice do you give someone? Because sometimes maybe they're guilty, because earlier you talked about just the cost and people who don't necessarily have the financial ability to afford professional home care. And one of the things that I always say is that, you just gotta, remind them that, love isn't measured in dollars. You know what I mean? And so, doing your best, it really doesn't mean that you're having to do it all alone. So reaching out for help, it doesn't mean that you're less caring or anything like that. It just means that you care enough to make sure that your loved one gets the best support possible. And so at the end of the day, it's important not to suffer in silence, but to reach out and have conversations with other people who have been where you are. So maybe it's a church member or a friend or a colleague that you remember who had an aging loved one, and you can pick their brain. And if you don't have anybody in your circle, maybe it's reaching out to professional organizations that are willing to take the time and answer questions. Because, again, if we wait until calamity falls, now we have fewer options to operate under, because we're not operating with long-term planning. We're not operating with a sober mind. We're not operating with logic. We're operating with urgency and emotion. And whenever we do that, that's where problems start to happen.
And guilt is a huge one. You might be in a position to where you are working full time, and maybe you're the sole breadwinner for your home, but now your parent needs help. You can't quit your job. What do you do?
Right.
So you're dealing with all this guilt, and it's just
it.
Way too much.
That's a real thing. And so, oftentimes, and unfortunately, one of the things that I've seen in my experience is that the family automatically just assumes that the sister in the family is going to be the one to take care of it. So let's say, for example, there's two brothers and a sister. Overwhelmingly, that falls on the sister, right?
Right.
So, I'm telling you, I've seen it so many times. And so sometimes, the sister in that family unit might be a professional and have her own kids and have her own family. And so it's really important, as we talked about earlier, is to have those courageous conversations. And so for those of you out there that are watching this, maybe you're in a situation where mom and dad are healthy right now, but you see the writing on the wall that if their health starts to decline, and you're the most likely person that they're saying, but they're not saying it out loud, you need to start having that conversation now so it doesn't get left to you. Because I've seen also family dynamics deteriorate because because one thing that happens is so much conflict happens because of unmet expectations. And so when the family is all expecting for one of the siblings to take the lion's share, and the sibling gets to a point where maybe they even decide to take the lion's share in the beginning, but being a caregiver is overwhelming.
Yeah.
And over time, the people that are not in that situation, they don't necessarily understand that dynamic. They just say, oh, yeah, she's got it. She's good. And, even when they ask, hey, how are you? And they say, oh, I'm doing fine. Everything's good. Mom had a good day today. That doesn't mean that they're not
Doesn't mean
suffering in a
anything.
significant way. And so if they don't have that conversation before it all happens, then that's where the family
Are we
unit starts
all going to chip in?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Because right now my mom my mom and my brother are roommates, right? But now I'm seeing that the hat is about to flip. And like my brother is working. And now I'm in, Northern California and everything. But it's like
What are we going to do?
You can't make a roommate flip to a caregiver. It's just not.
That's
you know,
right. That's
you know
right.
what I'm saying? And so I see the pressure on him also because and the guilt too. But it's like, but you got to eat,
Absolutely.
And so, since we're talking about conversation, and that's like the most important place to be, where we need to be, like the headspace we need to be in.
Yep.
Do you guys have like a booklet that lays out questions, or am I like jumping your business too far ahead? Or it's like, hey, that's a good idea. Or do you know of some questions that we can start with to give to the caregiver? Like, is there something like hand to here, mommy, fill this out?
Yeah, what I'll do is after we're done recording, I'll send you some things. So let me write that down because I have some training materials that are out there that I put on my YouTube channel, and I can send you the link because what it talks about is what are the questions you ask and how
and we'll put that link also. We'll put that in the description as well for everybody else.
Yeah. Okay.
If that's okay.
Of course, absolutely.
Okay.
Any way we can.
Are we starting you a whole new?
I'm just giving away stuff.
No. That's all free stuff that we give away because it's important to have as much equipment and as many tools in your toolbox because that's what relieves the stress and the anxiety. So any way that we can help with that, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, because the main thing on my mind is that I just want her to have an awesome life.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And I'm just like, man, I mean, there's just so many thoughts going through my head, even to the point I'm like, should I move her up here? How do I break that question? And how do I do that? And, would that be taking her away from like her normal life? Or whatever. Or if you come up here, it's a whole. I just have this whole plan in my head. And the thing is, it's a new plan because Steph and I have talked about that. Like our lives have changed for both of us, and so before this was like a family plan, and now it's a Monique plan and my brother plan. I'm single, he's single, so it's okay. How do we approach this now without a husband or a wife or the family? Now it's just us.
That's right.
Yeah,
a couple things I would say just to get you to start thinking about, and then also people that are in your same situation, is the first thing is that life happens, and unfortunately the way life unfolds doesn't always align with how we anticipated that it would work. And so what we have is what we have.
That was another podcast, Len. Letting go of the life that you thought you would have.
That's right.
We just did that what 3 weeks ago, I think.
Oh, how funny. Yeah. And how do you pivot and how do you adjust?
Yeah. I mean,
sure.
I was sitting here and, going on 28 years of marriage with my husband, and next thing you know, he's got stage 4 cancer. We were not expecting that.
Yes,
At all.
yes.
Like,
You don't ever
bam.
plan for that,
Yeah.
you know, and it's so difficult because when you don't plan and how could you plan? That's never
Right.
even
It's
on
like,
your
hey,
radar to
everybody's
even
healthy.
think.
We're all good.
That's
And so
right.
you're not.
Exactly. And where you are, Monique, is, you got to look at, okay, who are the people who love your mom? And all of those people, whether it's your children, your brother, your other family members, whoever those people are, you need to be the one, because I can tell just looking at your expression and your face and listening to your voice how much of a concern it is for you, and it's probably something that keeps you up at night. And since that's the case for you, you be the one that leads the charge to getting the family members to have a conversation about mom. And you've also have to think about what are some sacrifices that you may need to make if nobody else does what you hope and wish and plan for them to do. At the end of the
Yeah.
day, if you are the one that's saying mom's got to be taken care of no matter what, it might be having to move from Northern California to Southern California. It might be having to move her from being your brother's roommate to being your roommate. It might be you and mom getting, a different place altogether that suits
Together.
her needs. Because here's the other thing. When
You're
remember
hitting it on the head. Oh my God.
Man, so think about what it was like when you had kids and they were in the crib, but then they started to walk, and now they're walking around the house, and now they start finding all of these things, and you have to childproof the house. Well, the reality is that as mom gets older, you've got to make sure that the home is safe for her, that there's no tripping hazards, and there's no things that, if she gets up in the middle of the night, how is she going to make it to the bathroom because she's in an unfamiliar environment, or maybe she doesn't pick up her feet like she
Her
used to do.
feet.
You see what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
all of these things are so important to think about. And oftentimes, because again, we don't know, we start to learn as bad things happen. So we learn about the night light on the way to the bathroom after mom fell in the middle of the night. We learn about taking all of the sharp utensils and putting them out of mom's reach after she cuts herself. We learn about getting a stove cover over the oven because she's burned herself or she's burned the food. And so we had to learn how to adapt and get an oven that turns off after a certain amount of time. And so really beginning to think about all of those things that you dread, think about it like this. Your parents, you are parents of children, and think about what it was like and how you had to childproof the home, how you really had to reshuffle and rethink your lives because it all revolved around them. If you are the ones that are providing care, you're going to have to think about those things. Now, for people that are out there that are saying, you know what, that's too overwhelming to me, that's where you put it in our hands where we think about those things. That's our job. Our job is to think about what are the possibilities before they happen so we can show you how to plan and avoid those pitfalls. And that's really what it comes down to. So, but the first step for you, Monique, gather all the people that love your mom and have those difficult and courageous conversations.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. Yeah. I think if she were to come up here though, I think because I have two kids up here and they are just out and about having fun. I think she would have a great time.
Okay.
Like there's always she would always have activities. She would always have, she likes to eat. So, and I'm a chef, so she can
Hey, that's a good combination. That's a match made in heaven.
combination and, just somebody's there to talk to and hang out with, I think that she would like that.
Yeah. But so
That is
make
on my
sure
mind.
you know that's something she would like to do.
Yeah,
and
that's up to her.
also you want to make sure that you're not overcommitting the kids to something that you may assume they want to do that they may not have signed up for. So, just make sure, again, there may be a set of assumptions that all of you are carrying. So get all of those assumptions out in front of you on the table. I'll give you a quick story just to illustrate that point. Unrelated directly, but indirectly related. So before my wife and I got married, we had premarital counseling. And one of the ministers said, look, I'm not going to marry you unless you have premarital counseling. We were thinking, I, at that point, had been dating her for 4 years. So we know each other pretty well. We get along great. I will tell you, after going through premarital counseling, there are things that I would have never thought about. And had those conversations not been broached and all of those assumptions been tested, there would have been many, many pitfalls that my wife and I would have had. And so the same thing, while we're not talking about premarital counseling in this instance, we're talking about having conversations about assumptions and putting them all out there so that there's no guesswork. There's no opinions about how things are going to possibly turn out. It's thoughts that turn into an action plan, and that's really the best way that I would recommend doing it.
Yeah. Oof.
Yep.
Okay.
That's good.
That's good.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Keep going.
Oh, okay.
I love it. Love it. I love it.
Action plan. I'm taking notes.
Okay, no problem. No
You
problem.
see me look down, it's like, what is she doing? She's taking notes.
Hey, that's good. I mean, because for you, this is not just the topic of conversation. This is real life.
This is happening.
This is real time right now.
It's about to go down.
I get it. And when you're talking about mom or dad, it takes on an extra level of significance because it's so interesting how the tables have turned, right? Because we feel a sense of loyalty because our parents changed our poopy diapers. Our parents were there before we could walk, talk, do anything for ourselves. And so oftentimes, unfortunately, in American culture, we tend to shove our parents into other places just to get them out of our hair. And, in other situations, it's necessary because they need professional care. So I'm not making any value judgment on that. But when it comes down to your parents, it is of significant importance that you do what's best for them, but you also do what's best for you, because one thing that I would say is that there is a big challenge amongst caregivers. And here's the reason why. They don't get a break. They don't get a chance to be the daughter. They don't get a chance to be the son. They don't get a chance to just enjoy their parent for the relationship. When they jump into caregiving mode, they're on 24/7, and levels, studies have been done. Cortisol levels go up because stress goes up. And when stress goes up, it puts stress on the heart. And when that happens, there's this whole negative cascade of health factors that come in for the caregiver. So it's really, really, really important that those of you that are out there that are thinking about being caregivers for your parent, make sure you take care of yourselves as well. Because oftentimes what happens is that guilt starts to creep in and you start to think, you know what? I just got to tough it out while mom is still alive, while dad is still alive. And I'm not going to go on any vacations. I'm not going to go visit my kids. I'm not going to do anything fun because my job is to be here for my parents because they were here for me. No, don't do that. That's a very quick way to end up dying yourself because there's studies. You go online, you'll see caregivers oftentimes lose years off of their life because of caregiving for another one, because it can be isolating. Sometimes family members disagree with what's happening and what's best, and then the caregiver saying, well, you're not here taking care of mom or dad, so I'm going to do what I want to do. And now you've got friction with mom or dad because they still want their independence. You have friction with brothers and sisters because they think you're doing it all wrong. They have friction with your kids because they're like, mom, dad, where's my mom and dad? I still need you. Even as an adult, I still need you. And so when those caregivers are in those situations, it's almost like they're the center of the hub of all these peripheral challenges, and they're getting hit in all of these different directions. And it's almost impossible to stay balanced if you don't take the time to care for yourself.
Oh,
Yeah.
so that is so on point because I have seen all of those.
Yes.
All of those take place.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, we're talking about parents here, but I have come into contact with so many people that are caregivers for kids that are, growing into teenagers and adult kids that they're having to take care of. I mean, after my husband passed, literally 2 months later, my son almost died because he came down with Guillain-Barré syndrome and literally within a week was paralyzed from like head to toe in the hospital for 2 months. And when he came home, he couldn't move still.
At all.
I'm at a place where it's like, okay, this is my son, my 20-year-old son, and he can't do anything for himself. I have to do it all for him. So it's a whole gamut of, you don't know where it's going to come from. You don't know what life is going to throw at you, but you're in it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's a different type of an emotion, especially with mothers and their sons and fathers and their daughters.
Yes.
And I don't understand why. I mean, I have some thoughts about it, but mothers have this special bond with their kids. Like I see it between my wife and my sons.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have any daughters, but I have a lot of friends who are daddy's girls, and like my wife is a daddy's girl.
My daughter
and the
was
type of
definitely a
relationship
daddy's
they
girl.
have, it's unshakable. And so when you're a parent, you have these goals and dreams and thoughts and ideas and ideals about what was going to happen to your own children. The whole idea is, they go up, they go to college, they get a job, or they start a business and they're successful and they get married at some point and they're on their own. You start thinking about grandchildren and all of these things. And then when the unthinkable happens to your own child, and it's almost like you almost, what's the word? You almost mourn the loss of the ideal of what your child was going to be. And it's almost like a mourning of death. It's not the same. I'm not trying to conflate the two, but there is a mourning process that happens with that.
Yeah. A grieving of what was lost.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, in situations like that, it's always good to find people that have gone through that. So support groups are really, really important, because sometimes when you go through difficult challenges, especially as a parent, you start to feel like you're the only ones out there because I've seen it. I've been through some challenges with raising kids, and I have adult kids, and we've been through some challenging times. And there were particular instances where I'd walk out of my house and everybody's living their life and doing everything. And it felt, because my world was so caved in, that the entire world, like there should be clouds outside and people are dressed in gray and black and mourning with me, but they're just living their lives. And so sometimes it brings on this sense that you're alone. And so being in support groups and finding other people who can really empathize with your plight is super, super important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. That helped me a lot with my dad, because I was going through when he was at the last stages, and he was at the house. You remember that? And I was in culinary school at that time. And so the Lord just happened to put people there, two people that were really important to me, that had gone through having to be in home care and made it out. And then one that was actually doing home care with a parent or whatever. So they can walk me through different things, and they would just know, I know I look normal. I know I didn't like bring my issues to school, but they would know my spirit, and they're like, okay, what's happening today?
Mhm,
And
mhm.
so I would sit down and talk about it. They're like, okay, so this is what's happening, and these are the steps that are happening, and then you need to do this to relax, to debrief, and I'm just like, man, if I wouldn't have had those guys, that would have been, ooh, that
Mhm.
helped a lot because I didn't feel alone.
Yeah, isolation
Yes.
is huge.
I didn't
Yep.
feel alone. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
isolation is a really big thing. And then also you touched on faith too, because I'm a believer, and faith really gives caregivers in this sense strength when they feel empty. Because
Yeah.
Yeah.
sometimes in and of yourself, not having a source to go through is quite difficult. And so faith really reminds us that the work that we do is sacred, and it's an act of love and service. And so knowing that God sees your effort, even in unseen sacrifices, that can really bring comfort and peace because we know that God knows all. And so really having faith as a foundation, I could not, as a believer, think of any other way, especially when times get very difficult. When you know that in and of yourself and in and of your own strength, you can handle it. Having that faith and having God as that fortress, or that foundation is super, super important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because literally, in our weakness, we are made strong.
That's right.
Right.
If you don't have that, I don't know how people do this kind of thing without some sort of faith background, because it's so heavy. It's so,
Yes.
Yeah.
So
if you don't
true.
have
So
anything
true.
to lean on,
Hmm.
it's hard.
Absolutely.
So you definitely need some support.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. And
Oof.
the reality is you can't pour from an empty cup,
Exactly.
and
That's it.
sometimes you just got to go and pray, and then get your cup full, and you need to
And then
rest,
come
and
back.
then you need to do something that also refreshes your spirit, even if it's just a walk. Maybe it's music, maybe it's time in nature, because self-care isn't unselfish. It's not selfish, it's survival. So,
Right.
all of those things are super important.
Yeah.
That was one of the things that we talked about on our last episode that we did with that, just finding micro moments to carve out for yourself, whatever that might be, music, or going to a movie or taking a walk, whatever that might be. But you
Mm-hmm.
have to do something to bring that life back into you to fill up again.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
I have been known to go to a movie by myself. If I'm having a particularly tough day, I'll just slip out and go catch a movie and be in a place where I can change my state and my mental mindset, because
Mindset.
it's an escape for me. And so,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is, sometimes it's a walk in the morning, and, I'll do 5 to 10 miles a day because I like to eat. And, and
Yep.
so I want to make sure that, I can
There's
stay
no
in
place for it to
shape.
go.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, but getting that sunlight, that fresh air, and that alone time is always very helpful for me. So,
Mhm.
for those people that are out there, just always find ways to do what fills your cup.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, like we said, and he said the information will be in the
We'll
what
put
do you
it in
call
the
that?
description.
What do you call that on the bottom down there?
In
We'll
the
put it in
description.
the
In the
description. We'll
description.
have the links for you to
Yeah.
go to his
Yes.
channel and get that information that you need. And this is definitely one that you're
This
going
is
to want to share with
yes.
people. You need
Yes.
to share it with as many people as possible, because nobody likes to think about it, but it is real. It happens, and it can happen at any point
Yeah.
to a parent, a spouse, a child, sister, brother, whatever. Life happens. So we need to be prepared. So we want you to be prepared. So share, share, share. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and definitely share.